I don't believe in ghosts, but I do think that there are pieces of gear that get attached to a community and they kind of haunt that community. So my Princeton that has the reverb added, I get people calling me once a week wanting to buy it, and today I got an offer that I just can't say no to. So it's time to say goodbye to my Princeton. So the music scene in my town is pretty small. And when I say pretty small, I mean you kind of have the same 300 or 400 musicians, it seems, that are always kind of connected. You see them at the farmers markets, you see them when you go out to shows, or when you go to like the local ski resort, you'll see the same kind of guys playing at most of these events. And what happens is somebody has a cool piece of gear, and that piece of gear ends up getting kind of this fame attached to it of like, oh, that was Tim's guitar when he played in that band. And so what happened with this Princeton is it is an amp from a small town that everybody loves, everybody's heard about. And so it's just a popular piece. I didn't really know that when I got it. I just wanted, a silver face or a black face, cool, small tube amp that I can play at my house. But this thing is just too cool, and I really am not playing much electric guitar these days. Band member of the guy who originally bought this thing really wants it back, and he wishes that he would have bought it from his bandmate, and I understand that. And so what I did is I just kind of laid it out there. He said he wanted to buy it, and he asked me what I wanted to sell it for. I paid $600 for it. I said, well, I would like to get $800 for it, which when you're using that phrase, I'd like, it kind of insinuates that I would come off of that price a little bit. Realistically, I wanted to be around $750 on it. He came back saying, well, you should think about what other options people could buy for that amount of money. You could buy a Fender Deluxe Reverb. And I said, okay. I told him to go ahead and buy one of those if that's what he wanted, because it's a different amp than this. And usually when someone makes the case of like, well, the vintage ones are this price and you could buy a reissue for less, or for the same price, you would just buy an original one. So that his negotiating didn't make sense to me. He came back and he said he would do $700. And to me, it's cooler than that. I don't really want to sell it. I don't really have to sell it. And he came back and said, well, how about $700? I said, no, let's do $750. And this is where the negotiation got weird. He said, I'll do $750 if it is contingent on me taking it to a repair shop and having them look it over, and then we'll settle up. So he wanted to take the amp for free, a guy I don't know from a town that is not my area. He's an hour or so away. And I said, no way. That's a weird deal. Don't make deals with contingencies. So with this, he said it's all contingent on getting it checked out by the shop that did all the repairs, which it was just there 3 weeks ago. So it's good to go. It is working 100%. So I came back and said, I'll do $725. So I came down $50 or $25. I said, let's do $725. It has to be today because I'm not going to meet him tomorrow, and I want to keep the pressure on him to keep the deal moving. So I said, let's do $725 today, and it comes as is. We're not doing a contingent deal. And he said, that's great. So I'm on the way to meet him right now. We're meeting at a Starbucks. Anyway, that's the deal. It's a weird one. It's interesting when you get people that are dead set on wanting to own a piece of gear that you have that you're not interested in selling. This happens to me more often than not. Like, there's stuff that I buy and I don't necessarily want to sell it, but people play it or see it or hear that I have it, and then I'll get a text or I'll get a phone call like, please, I want to buy it. And almost always I end up letting people buy it, because I want people to be passionate about guitars and gear, and I want them to discover new things about themselves when they find these pieces of gear. So it just made sense to me, like, of course, yeah, like, you can have it, man. Anyway, I'm pulling in here in a minute to see the guy, and it's going to be pretty fun.
You're taller than in the video.
Oh. There it is.
It's familiar.
Yeah, so you played with the guy that had it, or how do you know about this?
I bought it for $75.
Okay.
My brother, he worked it. I told him what I wanted in it.
Cool.
And it was not in playable condition at all. I did some new transformers. So I should never let it go, but I was playing the electric at the time. I was playing acoustic bluegrass type stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was a little discouraged when I found out that Princeton's had become popular.
Oh, yeah. They're the most they've been.
The reverb was on a
Okay, so here's what just happened. I was wrong. This wasn't the guy who used to play with the guy. This was the guy. He bought this amp in 1981. It wasn't really working. His brother, who is a hi-fi stereo repairman in Stanton, Virginia, fixed this amp for him. That's who put in the reverb unit originally, but at that point he had a 12-inch JBL in it because he played pedal steel. And this is not the right amp for pedal steel, but he got really into it. He sold it to another guy years ago, and it bounced around through Stanton, Virginia, through Charlottesville. It wound up in the valley where I am. And so now it's finally back to him. He was funny. He was very particular. Didn't like the price he was paying, but it's the amp that he had. So he started out life trying to get my feet rolled over by a car behind me. He paid $75 for this amp originally. From there, he put in a couple $100 modifying it and putting in that new speaker. And then he sold it years later, and it's been bouncing around for a long time, and he just now got it back, and he paid me $725. So I paid $600. I made just over 20%. He was not happy with it, but when it comes down to it, he wanted it. He had the background with it. I had it, and I didn't want to sell it. That's the best position to be. Now with this, obviously there's an ethical side of taking care of people, not gouging people. I didn't run up the price to $900 because he wanted it, but if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So I'm excited that he got it back. It's really cool. I'm glad that he got it. So let's head home. I have more things to sell. Time to start cleaning house. Hey man, I just sold that Princeton. So yeah, I met the guy at the Starbucks, and he's the guy who bought it originally and had those mods done to it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so he, because apparently he bought it in '81. I didn't realize how old those mods are. He did the mods in '81. His brother is like a hi-fi and like amp repair guy. Yeah, so he did it, and then he sold it about 8 years ago, he said. And it's been bouncing around. He's been trying to find it.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty cool what they did too.
I know, it's super cool. I mean, when that dude loves it that much, I'm like, okay. He was pretty ridiculous on the terms.
I'm sure.
But then when he told me at the end,
if you've been looking for it for that long, you think you're just very sure I'll take it.
all right, man. Well, I just want to call and give you the story. All right, I'll see you around.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Thanks, man.
All right.
See ya.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where in the comments people are gonna pick on me, saying that I'm not actually a collector, that I'm not actually someone who keeps guitar stuff. Yeah, that's true. That is firmly it. I've always had the bug of buying and selling. And listen, that dude, when he told me I'm the original buyer, my brother did the work on it. I love this amp. I've wanted it. I shouldn't have sold it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I should have kept on to it. I should have held on to it. Man, What kind of jerk would I be if I said, no, I'm gonna hang out, or if I tried to just gouge them on price? So I got a fair price for it. I'm excited about it. It's a bummer that I don't get to keep it, but I'm Jeremy the Guitar Hunter. I get to buy and sell really cool guitars and gear, and I get to keep cool stuff every now and then. So let's go find something cool after this.